What's up, everybody? Chris Fluke here. Chris Fluke Podcast, episode number 99. It's April 24th, 2022. It's a beautiful day up here in Pennsylvania. We finally got some nice warm weather. We got the sun out, and we're about to have a great day here as we got a massage scheduled for the afternoon. But right now, we're talking about that one thing, that one unwanted guest, right, that comes to the party and just sticks around forever, man. They never leave. It gets to the point where no matter how hard you try, they're still there. They might be sleeping on their couch right now, and you're like nudging them, trying to wake them up, saying, hey, I got things to do. But guess what? They're not going anywhere now. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Art Devaney, and I heard this story. This dude was ripped. He was this jacked up older dude who kind of got into this primal paleo style of living long before it became cool and hip. And somebody raised their hand one day and they were like, hey, Art, how do you get rid of fat? And his answer was this: don't get fat in the first place. Now that might sound like an insensitive, a snarky, asinine comment. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, what Yale University has just kind of come out with in the past couple of years might have been accurate. What they found is that these fat cells, once they're in your body, they never go away. They might shrink, they might get very small, they might almost seem as if they disappear, but they're just sitting there waiting. They're waiting to be fed so that they can expand once again. All right, so like Devaney said, the best way to get rid of fat is not to get fat in the first place. Now let's say you happen to be a guy or a gal that goes to college and gains 35 pounds in a year like myself, and it was not good weight. It's got me thinking to myself, is what I did back when I was 19 years old, is that still with me right now, where I'm almost twice as old as that? Is that fat that I introduced to myself, those fat cells, are they still floating around in there? Yale University will say yes. All right. Now the problem with that is that it kind of leads to a mindset of like, oh well, what the hey, it's going to be with me forever. You don't want to embrace this thing because you don't want to get more fat cells. And as we can see here, we have these trends going on where kids at a younger age, people at a younger age, the obesity rates are climbing. In 1971, the overweight obesity number for boys and girls, kids, all right, 16.3%. Today it's 41.5%, and those stats were taken before COVID-19. So, and we all know that the rise in COVID, we talked about it previously, the lockdowns and all that other stuff, the lack of sports, the lack of activities, the lack of routine, really led kids to gain weight at a faster rate, alarming rates. So my prediction here is probably that number's closer to 40, somewhere in that 43 to 45% range now, all right? So in the last 50 years, it jumped 35% and some change, okay? That's worrisome. If your child who, unfortunately we're in this boat. We just have a big daughter. Like if I look at my body weight right now for my height, I'm borderline obese, right? If you look at the BMI charts. So I understand the BMI charts might not be a great tool, but for a lot of us that are inactive, that don't do anything, which is a large part of the population, a huge chunk of us don't do anything. So the BMI charts actually apply pretty well to those people. Height and weight, okay? If you're obese at the age of 2, you have a 75% chance of being an obese adult. In middle school, if you're obese in middle school, 87% chance. If you leave high school and you're obese, you have over a 90% chance of being obese as an adult. So what this says is this: even if those individuals do end up getting their weight under control, they do lose weight, some of their fat cells do shrink. Those fat cells are still there waiting to grow, and that's why we see a lot of people gain weight back. They lose weight in an unhealthy manner, and those fat cells are just sitting there waiting, man. They're waiting to get fed, and when they do, weight comes back on, and then some on top of that, right? And it's very quick to do that. Why? It's because those fat cells are in the waiting, just waiting for their time to shine once again. And if you introduce some stuff to it, they'll blow right back up. It might take you 1 year to lose 30 pounds. You can put that back on in a month, right? That's kind of how it goes. So we have to work very hard to not get in that boat. And if we do get in that boat, it's time now to pull on the brakes here and to put an end to this stuff. So, as we go over this, I feel like this is common knowledge for the most part. The health effects, right? Obesity, we have all the heart conditions going on there. Harvard, School of Medicine came up with it. It's associated with 11 different forms of cancer. We got the blood pressure, the cholesterol, stroke, all that stuff, right? Now we got this mental component to it where we have depression, dementia, Alzheimer's, things like that. They're trying to find these links here. And, basically a healthy mind, this is going back to the ancient, Greeks or Romans. A healthy mind cannot exist in an unhealthy body. And the inverse of that is also true. A healthy body can't survive with an unhealthy mind, all right? So when we get moving here with this stuff, right? We have to understand that there's a relationship between the two. You see people in a funk, depressed, inactive, all of these things just kind of snowball off one another. And there's one thing that we could do to kind of reverse that, and that's to start introducing some healthy habits to our life. Mahatma Gandhi said, if you want to change the world, start with yourself. I think it's a general right now, I don't remember his name exactly. He says, if you want to make a change, like make your bed in the morning, right? Take care of yourself first. Jordan Peterson says the same stuff, right? There's all of this stuff going on. It's easy for us to critique. It's easy for me to have a podcast here where I'm telling people what they're doing wrong, right? But if I really want to make change, I need to start here in the house, right, with myself. And then the people that are surrounded by me, loved ones, family members, clients, anybody else, they see those actions there. They might want to start partaking in some of those actions as well. Exercise is a keystone habit. If we exercise and do this positive thing, all of that rush of endorphins that we get, right? Those feel-good moments, that euphoric feeling we get after a good hard workout, right? That feeling's going to last for a bit, and it's going to start snowballing into other areas, all right? So we need to start moving a little bit, okay? We need to have conversations with those around us. We have to be able to talk about it, communicate, show them the way, right? If you have a child, they say more is caught than taught. You can't tell them to eat your vegetables if you're not eating your vegetables. You can't tell them to value sleep if you don't value sleep. You can't tell them to be physically active if you aren't physically active. I mean, you can, but if you really want that lesson to hit home, you got to show them the way, man. You got to lay the path down for them. They need it. Just like, a kid doesn't understand proper grammar. If you speak in full sentences with good grammar, they're going to understand that that's how you talk. They're not going to be able to explain why that's the way, but that's the way. Now, if you talk and you use vulgarities and all this other stuff, and your kids start saying it, you showed them that path. Does that make sense? You hear a kid say something, I'm going to kick your ass, right? And it's like, well, you shouldn't have said that to somebody else, because they probably heard you say it and now they're following that path, right? I already talked about my daughter telling me I suck. I don't think I've ever told anybody they suck, but by hanging out with me, maybe in that gym, all right, maybe they heard somebody else say it, and that person laughed after they said, you suck. Emmy thought it was probably a good joke. It was a good thing to tell her dad, hey, you suck, and then laugh about it. Just the way it goes, man. More is caught than taught. Remember that. The same with our ethics and our behaviors, right? If we're unethical, if we're immoral, if we have poor behaviors, they're probably going to follow that path, right? Now, there's always that example, too, where, I always like that story where, say there's two brothers, right? Say they're twins, for example, and their dad's an alcoholic, and one of them becomes an alcoholic, and they said, it's dad's fault, Dad's the reason I'm an alcoholic. The other one that doesn't drink at all says the same thing. Dad's the reason I don't drink, right? So you see this example, right? Some of us follow that path, and it's easy to follow that path. Other of us fight that resistance, right? In this case here, with this positive behavior, we don't even want to present the alternative, really. Like, we want this thing to be so positive, the things that we're doing, that everybody else just kind of wants to get on board. You know what I'm saying? So while we're doing this now, if you are a parent, if you do work with other people, here's a few steps that we could do to kind of get us going, right? We already talked about, we didn't talk about it too much, but we have to value sleep. Now, if you got a kid, they probably need 10 plus hours, right? You get to those teenage years and their clock starts to shift a little bit. They probably need to sleep in a little bit. It's not that they're being lazy, it's just that their body's going through these changes, right? So we need to understand that, and we need to embrace that. If you're an adult, and let's say you're not getting enough sleep. I haven't been this past week. I've been waking up at this ungodly hour, but I'm going to bed a little bit later, so it's affecting my sleep. So what do I need to do? I need to understand that maybe my wake-up time is 5 o'clock every day, because I'm getting up a little bit before that naturally. Today I got up at like 5:50, which was good because I needed it. But I don't set the alarm, but let's say you just count backwards, right? So if I count backwards from 5 a.m., if I count 9 hours backwards, right, that's going to put me at, sorry about that. Still got this lingering cold going on here. So 5 hours, right, gets us to midnight, and then another 4 puts us at 8 o'clock. So at 8 o'clock, I need to start that shutdown process a little bit, right? That's 9 hours before my wake time. Now, if I hang out, lounge for an hour, fine. Then I have another hour to get to bed. And if I'm able to do that, then I got 7 to 8 hours of sleep, which is good enough, I think. Ideally, 8 hours, I think, would be awesome, but I haven't been able to hit that in a very long time. So, step number 1, get your sleep in. Count backwards. Whenever your wake-up time is, count backwards 9 hours. That's when the shutdown mode needs to begin. You take that first hour to drink your tea, to take a shower, to unwind, read a book, do whatever you got to do, and then that next hour, try to be sleeping by that point. Or if you can, just fall asleep at that 9-hour mark, and you'll be feeling like a champ the next day. We need to eat better, right? I just learned this last week. We had Easter. We went down to my parents' house. My mom's aunt was there. Man, there's cupcakes and stuff like that. I'm a guy that is all in. I'm all or nothing, right? So I have the discipline to say no, and I can just be firm and, I could be pretty stubborn with that idea, right? On the flip side, if I open up the floodgates, man, they come in hard. I had a handful or two, maybe 2 handfuls of cupcakes on Sunday. Let's just say I had a good 5 on Sunday, right? Took a couple home, ate some more on Monday. Now, that's not going to put me on the path of success by any means, and I understand that. But I just said, I don't eat them often, fine, blah, blah, blah. You start rationalizing your way around it. So one thing I was reminded of is that if they're not around, you don't eat it, right? So with eating now, we need to eat like grown-ups. If it's our other half, if it's our kids, if it's whatever, right? If you don't want them eating it, don't buy it, even if they want you to. If you're in control of that, if you have the power, man, let's take the power back. I think that was Public Enemy said that, right? Take the power back, man. You buy the food, you buy what is healthy. You buy the stuff that you want them to eat, and you don't buy the junk. Because if the junk's not there, they're not going to eat it. At least that's how it is for me, and that's how it is for other people. We present healthy food for people. They're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. Yeah, no crap. All right? But yet, they don't do it on themselves. It needs to be presented in a way. It needs to be there for them, right? Another thing that we're trying to do, I just kind of learned this concept. Our daughter loves, like, say, potatoes. Just this morning, we're eating breakfast, right? She has eggs, potatoes, and roasted cauliflower on her plate for breakfast. We also had some grapes out. She would just eat potatoes the whole time. So we're like, all right, how the heck do we get her to eat the other stuff too? Luckily today she was good about it, and we just asked her, hey, Emmy, can you eat some eggs? Sure, she did. She ate way too many potatoes, but we just said, and we're at this point now where it's like, let's just get her to have a little bit of each thing. She has to try each thing at least once, and then from there, let's let her decide. Let's try to talk to her about it. Let's try to encourage her to eat some more grapes. It's good for her belly. It's good for this. It's good for that. Or eat some vegetables, whatever. You get big and strong. We don't have Popeye anymore to use it as an example. But she understands the idea of, like, being healthy just because she's around me in the gym a lot when I'm training people. And we talk about getting stronger and this and that. And she wants to be strong, and she wants to be able to do stuff on her own. And we kind of use food as a way to leverage that. Like, this stuff is going to help kind of optimize your performance. We don't use those words, but you get the idea, right? So with eating now, you want to have these good positive relationships. We don't want to say eat this, and then you could eat that. Like, that's how we always used to do it. But then it got to this point where, the things that we wanted her to eat, they had this negative connotation around it. If it was like, eat your cauliflower before your potatoes, she would say, no, I want to eat my potatoes. Then she would want to avoid that cauliflower. So now we have to kind of massage this and manage this in a little bit of a different way, so that she wants to actually try her cauliflower and try her grapes and try her eggs before she just crushes massive amounts of breakfast potatoes. So we don't want to put negative connotations around good, healthy foods. And we also don't want to use food as a reward. It's like, let's say you go walk up a hill, right? If your motivation to walk up that hill is a piece of cake at the bottom of the hill, you're always going to have to associate one of these extrinsic factors to physical achievement. But what you really want is that euphoric feeling, right? That sense of accomplishment to be the motivating factor, not the external reward of a piece of cake. You want them to be able to climb that mountain so they know, walk up that hill, whatever it is, right? You want them to have that great feeling that they just did something at the top, and that should be the motivating factor for future performance and future, motivation, future willingness to try physical challenges, right? It shouldn't be something else, right? So we're trying to use this reward system. Like, hey, you eat good food, you're going to feel good. If you eat crap, you might feel like crap. Those are lessons that she has to learn, and she will learn. So we're trying to massage this stuff and introduce this stuff in a way that's safe and healthy for her, but also give her some of that autonomy that she loves and desires, because, Jesus, she's a hard-headed little girl. So that's what we're doing with our kid. Is it right, and are we perfect? I don't know if it's right, and we're definitely not perfect. This is something we're trying, okay? And that's all you can do, right? If you're working with kids, if you have a kid, just got to keep trying, man. Don't stop trying. Don't give in because it's the easy way out. Steps. Guys, I think every kid's got a freaking like smartphone or something on their wrist. If your kid's inactive, we have to figure out a way to get them to move a little bit more, right? Just ask for 10% more, right? If they're taking 5,000 steps a day, let's get, hey, 5,500, all right? 5,500. Let's get it this week. And now you have to somehow motivate them to want to do it, right? And how do you do that best? I don't know. You got to know your kid, right? You got to be able to know who your kid is and what drives them, what they're into. Maybe you give them a break on something. Maybe you help them with something. Maybe you do one of these activities that they're always bugging you about that you don't want to do, but you'll do it just for them, right? Let's get them moving a little bit more, all right? 10% more. That's all we're asking for, right? Physical activity. We have to start tracking how active these kids are, right? The minimum, American College of Sports Medicine, 150 minutes of physical activity. This could be going for walks. It could be helping you with yard work. It could be gardening. It could be any of that stuff. 150 minutes of physical activity. Now, you want to put the cherry on top. 75 of those minutes should be intentional exercise, going, on a bike ride, going for a run, strength training, things like that. That would be included in that, right? Intentional exercise versus unintentional exercises. Non-exercise activities, 150 minutes of that. Bonus points now, if you could introduce a more intense exercise, something that gets that heart rate up in that 130 and above zone, all right? Now, I already kind of hinted at it already. Two sessions a week of strength building exercises or resistance training, I think goes a long way in building, big, strong, dense bones. I just heard a story of this guy, I think it was John Wellborn, who played with the Philadelphia Eagles, had a long NFL career. He got a procedure done when they took some bone marrow out of him. And then there was a Division I football player right behind him, but like 20 years apart. John Wellborn's life of resistance training, strength training, stuff like that, led the doctor to say, I cannot believe how dense and how much marrow we got from you. Whereas we looked at a present-day Division I football player, and this guy got like a quarter of the amount that you did in whatever, X amount of attempts, we'll say. What that's shown is that John Wellborn's history of, doing some strength training, some strength building, all of these sports that he played growing up helped to build big, strong, dense bones. And what is that going to mean? It means you're just going to be healthier, man. You're going to be less frail as you age. You're going to be less prone to injury now and when you're older, right? So we need to get in the weight room twice. We don't want to crumble. We don't want to be frail. We don't want to break down when we get older. So we should start introducing strength training stuff. I'm not talking about becoming a power lifter, but practicing your push-ups, practicing a bodyweight squat if you can't do it. There's ways to, modify these things. Let's start introducing those basic movements to these kids. Let's start building some strength. Let's start pushing against a little bit of resistance. And when they learn the powers of pushing against resistance and overcoming, that's what's going to carry over into life. Lastly, the average person checks their phone 344 times a day. That is appalling. That is crazy. Let's not be average. Let's be better than average. Tony Dungy talked about this with a great book called Uncommon. Success isn't for the common person, right? It's the uncommon people that achieve great things. Let's be uncommon. Let's not check our phone 344 times a day. Let's strength train, right? Because most people aren't doing it. Let's get our physical activity, because 1 in 5 kids are only doing it in the schools, right? 20% of the kids are actually getting the required physical fitness that are needed. Let's get our steps going. Let's increase it, man. Let's not go backwards. Let's get more active, not less active. Let's eat like we know how, like we're supposed to be eating. Let's eat some healthy, nutritious foods. Let's not be like the common person, right? Over 70% of the people are in a bad spot with overweight or obesity right now. Let's go against the grain here. Let's start reversing trends. Let's try to be the change in not only our life and everybody else's life. And let's get to bed earlier, man. Let's start sleeping. That is the base of the pyramid, man. Let that body rest and recover. All great things are just going to be built on a well-rested, well-recovered body. The body needs it, man. Let's get some good sleep. Hope you guys like this, man. This podcast, everything that we're doing here, I want this to support the youth programs that I run every day after school. So we appreciate the support. If you could like this, if you could share it, if you could continue to help get this word out, all it does is just kind of help, the youth in this local community here as we try to build something special here out on the farm. All right. If you haven't been out here, man, come on out. We got some cool stuff. We got big time camps in the summer. We got 6 weeks of stuff. We've got athlete that I trained is going to offer some. She's a female Division I player, going to offer some, lacrosse skills. And, we're just going to keep building, man. Every year we're trying to add a little bit more here and try to improve and try to get more kids in this community active, man. Hope you guys like this episode, man. Google, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and anywhere else. Podcast is out there. Chris Fluke Podcast. It is _ Cornerstone Fitness. That's the gym on Instagram. Also, Chris Fluke is on Instagram, but Chris Fluke, man, he doesn't do too much on Instagram. But if you can, throw the gym page a follow, throw it a like, whatever you may be, _ Cornerstone Fitness, man. I'm out. Peace.